InvestorIdeas.com podcast.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of InvestorIdeas.com podcasts. In today's podcast, I'm going to be looking at a few public company announcements from KHRN Life Sciences Corporation, trading on the TSXV Venture as KHRN and the OTCQX as KHRNF. Looking at Iconic Crop Solutions Incorporated, which is a division of ZAAG Group Incorporated, trading on the OTC as ZAAG. Also looking at BC Craft Supply Co. Limited, trading on the CSE as CRFT, as well as TLRY Incorporated, trading on the NASDAQ as TLRY. So first today, starting with KHRN Life Sciences Corporation, who announced they will launch 2 additional small format Zerenia clinics in the first quarter of 2021. Now, the new clinics, which follow on the successful launch of the company's first small format clinic in Medellin, will be located in high-traffic medical hub neighborhoods in 2 of Colombia's largest metropolitan centers outside of Bogota. With the 2 new small format Zerenia clinics, which are expected to open in early March, will expand KHRN's network to 6 clinics, improving regional access to the company's clinic services and medical cannabis products for patients across the country. Since opening our first small format Zerenia clinic in Medellin in December of 2020, we've seen tremendous patient demand for our products and services. Patient consultations and prescriptions continue to accelerate, with 8 of every 10 patients now receiving a paid prescription, despite operating in pandemic conditions. And having proven the demand for local physicians and the robust economic associated with small format clinics, KHRN will continue to expand its regional presence in Colombia and beyond, comments Alvaro Torres, KHRN CEO and Director. Now, supported by KHRN's larger clinic licenses, the 2 new Zerenia small format clinics will provide consultations both in person and through the Dr. Zerenia telemedicine platform, connecting patients with medical specialists trained in the ethical, safe, and responsible prescription of cannabis-based medications. And medical cannabis continues to be validated as an effective treatment of pathologies such as chronic pain, anxiety, insomnia, depression, headaches, epilepsy, and Parkinson's disease. So KHRN Life Sciences continuing to expand their small format Zerenia clinics. I've mentioned this before when they were first launching those Zerenia clinics, and really when you're looking at the medical cannabis market in Colombia, it's pretty much just operated by KHRN Life Sciences at this point. Again, there's a few other smaller operations, but the majority of the actual prescriptions and sort of doctor work is going through KHRN Life Sciences or the clinics attached with them. And I do think that compared to some of the other companies based out of Colombia that are focusing more on import and export, I do like that KHRN Life Sciences is also focused on the local community, as they have realized that there's a huge market potential there and a lot of quick revenue that they can get turned around in the local economy of Colombia, as there is a huge population and a growing demand and growing acceptance of medical cannabis. So I do think you're going to continue to see that their clinics become successful, and they're probably going to launch a few more in over the course of this year. And I would expect to, again, pay attention to them as one of the market leaders in Colombia. Again, there's One World Pharma, there's Farmacielo, there's a few other companies based out of that region of the world, but realistically, KHRN Life Sciences has been one of the companies that's been leading the way initially, and again, they've done a lot of their due diligence when it comes to having the licenses they need for both import and export, and for local sales. They have all their medical licenses. They're going, if there is a recreational market, they'll probably be one of the first to market with that as well. And again, they've also focused on having EU GMP certification for most of their facilities, so they can operate kind of wherever they need to. Next, looking at Iconic Crop Solutions, a division of ZAAG Group Incorporated, who announced that it's commenced the manufacturing and assembly of the next 10 medical cannabis grow pods. Now, once completed, these pods will be strategically placed within the first three First Nations communities, where the company's previously reported grow operations are already underway. And the company-owned pod manufacturing plant is located in Edgar Industrial Drive in Red Deer, Alberta, and plant manager Brian Cruikshank reported that the next 10 pods are being completed sequentially, with the first ones ready for deployment in early March, with all 10 ready for deployment by the end of March. Now, as previously reported, harvesting has been underway since late January to the 3 pilot demonstration pods for 3 separate First Nations communities, and the results appear to be on target, with anticipated revenues of $100,000 per pod within a 3-month growing season. And the deployment of the 2 newly assembled pods starting in early March and continuing onward illustrates exponential growth potential even with the first year of the company's operations. Now, when asked to provide his comments, Wade Eno, the CEO of Econic, stated that the excitement amongst our First Nation business colleagues to see these grow pods come into their communities is tremendous. Our manufacturing plant could not keep up with the volume demand we were experiencing, and the 3 communities for which we are completing this first harvest have all requested 100 pods each, and new requests from other First Nations communities have been processed weekly. We believe the rollout of 10 pods per month will give us the ability to respond quickly to any challenges along the way. We'll look forward to revenues of up to $1 million per quarter from each group of 10 pods. Now, John Morgan, the president of ZAAG Group, stated, "I support the strategy reflected in the comments by Mr. Eno. The medical cannabis industry has seen exponential growth in the past several years, and the potential in this industry remains very high. The companies experiencing the best success are those which start small and then expand in a controlled fashion from the revenues accrued. Econics has assembled the team to build and operate the grow pods, and its demonstrated network of enthusiastic First Nations community partners that confirms unlimited expansion potential." So if you haven't paid attention to Econic Group's pod solutions in the past, they're definitely a unique solution to growing cannabis within the medical community, and I do think that their focus on First Nations communities is a little more commendable than what you're seeing from most of the cannabis industry. Again, First Nations communities, both in the U.S. and Canada, have still been pretty heavily burned by not allowing easy access for cannabis licenses, cannabis grow operations, etc. But you're starting to see a few companies, again, address that. And I do think that the comments there made at the end by John Morgan are pretty exact. Where you're looking at the medical market, it is growing exponentially. And again, looking at the companies who have had the best success, whether it's in the medical or recreational market right now, it is a lot of the companies who have started small, made consistent revenues, and grown at scale, as opposed to the companies who built these giant facilities and have had to sort of rebound from that. That being said, most of the large-scale producers now are definitely reaping the benefits and the rewards of those large-scale expansion plans that they made early on. Next, looking at BC Craft Supply Co. Limited, who announced a new product into its supply chain from renowned BC microcultivator Dunn Cannabis Incorporated. The 24 kilograms of screwhead has been purchased by BC Craft and shipped to NDVA Limited, trading on the TSXV Venture as NDVA and the OTCQX as NDVAF, for processing into NDVA's new premium brand Artisan Batch. Now, the crystal-covered buds are processed in sleek 3.5-gram jars, which are now available in BC through private and provincial retailers, and Artisan Batch features strains from BC Craft small-scale and micro-cultivators across Canada and is quickly becoming a top craft brand in today's recreational market. Now, Dunn Cannabis is based in Abbotsford, BC, and is run by a legacy production team with over 42 years of cannabis experience. We're one of the first micros in BC, and we're fresh out of the gate with a new business that's very unique within the existing market, says Robert Logan Dunn, owner of Dunn Cannabis. We're unique in that we are production attentive, focused on what experience consumers expect, and provide new consumers a product that they will feel confident in. Bringing this clarity as a legacy producer is a great opportunity to show how this can work. Dunn Cannabis is different, and we sacrifice larger yielding cultivars with genetics that we know are going to dazzle the consumer. And Dunn and his team have refined their cultivation methods for decades to create high-grade, small-batch cannabis that the recreational market has been burning for. Now, Artisan Batch products have a tremendous success within many provincial distributors, selling out within 24 hours, and supply has been difficult to keep on the shelf. It's hard to miss the high praise and accolades for cannabis reviewers and cannabis consumers on social media platforms, and this feedback solidifies the BC Craft business model of bringing legacy small-scale cultivators to thrive in today's regulated market. Now, Matthew Waters, CEO of BC Craft, further stated, Dunn Cannabis continues to delight consumers in the recreational market with their high-quality artisanal flower. We're excited to bring another new cultivar to market, and thus far the consumer feedback has been extremely positive. So, if you've been paying attention to BC Craft Supply Co., they're a company that I talked a lot about very early on in the podcast, at least about a year or so ago, because I was very excited for what they're doing, and now you're starting to see a lot of that pay off as far as their business model. They're working with NDVA Limited to bring the brands to the market, so NDVA kind of manages the production and packaging as far as distribution to retailers, etc., and BC Craft Supply Co. manages these craft cultivators and kind of gives them the funding and access to get into the regulated market, and then helps bring their products to market through NDVA. And again, this is starting to pay off for both of these companies quite well now, as they are starting to be recognized very well within the provinces that they're selling. Obviously in BC, they're doing extremely well. And I do think that this business model is something that's going to take over at least most of the markets in North America. When you're looking at Canada and the US, you're going to see that there's going to be a demand for locally craft-grown cannabis, especially in so many parts of the US and Canada where there is a long-standing reputation of illicit growers who have created great product. And you can't kind of ignore that. Looking at Colorado, looking at California, looking at lots of different parts of the U.S., lots of different parts of Canada as well. BC is the most obvious one, but even in Ontario, there's going to be a demand for, Ontario-grown cannabis at some point. You're seeing that in Quebec right now. You're starting to see the craft industry appear there. And I think that as well, looking at a lot of the same regions of the world where wine production is pretty healthy right now, the same type of things will apply for cannabis as well. And I do think that, again, looking at more of when you compare it to the beer industry and you're looking at a lot of the beer microcultivators that have popped up in, the same type of regions of the world, the same thing should be eventually happening for the cannabis industry and playing out that way. Lastly today, looking at Tilray Incorporated, who I missed yesterday, who announced that to establish an agreement with Grow Pharma to import and distribute Tilray's medical cannabis products into the UK. Now, this agreement allows Tilray to provide authorized UK patients in need with a locally maintained supply of medical cannabis solutions. And Tilray expects to have a range of GMP-certified medical cannabis products available for patients in the UK by March of this year. And patients looking to use medical cannabis will have access to Tilray products in the UK by obtaining prescriptions through private practice and National Health Services. Now, Brendan Kennedy, Tilray's chief executive officer, said, "This partnership with Grow Pharma provides patients in need access to sustained supply of GMP-certified high-quality medical cannabis, and it's an important step in improving access in the UK. Tilray will continue to advocate for reasonable patient access to medical cannabis in Europe and countries around the world." So if you missed this news yesterday, Tilray stock definitely went pretty aggressively up. One of the top trades right now for the cannabis industry. Has been up over almost about 50% over the last 2 days and seems to be continuing to go upwards. There is some speculation that some of the same Reddit investors that were dealing with GameStop over the last couple of weeks are now targeting certain businesses in the cannabis industry, but I think that expectation is a little bit unfounded, as again, when you're looking at what type of trends have been happening in the cannabis industry over the last while, Tilray's uptick kind of follows the same thing you've been seeing with Aurora, with Canopy Growth, with Ephria, and I think most of these large-scale producers, again, despite anything, unless something pretty substantial happens this year, some sort of real big disaster for one of these companies, I would expect their stocks to continue to have somewhat of an uptrend for quite some time. As again, sales are going to be pretty steady. You're seeing more regulations open up. And a lot of these long-term partnerships and plans that these companies have put in place over the last 2 years are now starting to pay off in revenue very quickly. So again, I would expect to pay attention to those large-scale producers, but I think some of the trends we've seen in the past where these stocks take a heavy dip in certain points of the year, usually you're looking at April and May, there's some pretty heavy dips again, and then it kind of goes back upwards. I don't know if that's going to happen this year based off of the revenues you're going to be seeing. That's all for today's podcast. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. That's all for today's podcast. Podcast is now a certified word trademark on the blockchain through Cognate Incorporated CM certification. InvestorIdeas.com podcasts are also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and TuneIn. If you'd like to be a guest or sponsor of this podcast, please contact InvestorIdeas.com. Investor Ideas reminds all listeners to read our disclaimers and disclosures on the InvestorIdeas.com website, and this podcast is not an endorsement to buy products or services or securities. Investors are reminded that all investments involve risk and possible loss of investment. Investor Ideas does not condone the use of cannabis except where permissible by law. Our site does not possess, distribute, or sell cannabis products.